Man, good evening, guys. Hope everyone's having a pretty decent Tuesday evening. I thought I would jump on real quick, give you guys an update about what's happening out in the tropics, because I've seen a whole lot of junk on social media, and the goal is here to kind of clear the air on what we know, what we don't know, what we can't know, and basically everything that's kind of coming in terms of data-wise with Tropical Depression number 7 and what it may mean eventually for you if you're watching this somewhere along the Gulf Coast or inland or up the East Coast. I don't know. Where are you watching from? Let me know. I think most of you are probably Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, but I know there's some folks that check us out from Florida back into Texas and as far north as, parts of Virginia and Maryland. So, I wanted to give just a hot second for folks to kind of jump on. I know that this isn't probably going to garner a bunch of attention because the thing is so far away, but we will dive into things. I thought I would do a quick tropical debrief on what we know, what we can't know, what we may know, what we're going to try and know, and everything else. All right, so here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center, showing the center of this thing off to the east of the Leeward Islands, and this is going to drift off to the west, not necessarily very quickly, somewhere between about 10 and 15 miles an hour over the next couple of days, and eventually it's going to drag itself across most likely Puerto Rico and eventually Hispaniola. I put the forecast positions and max winds on here because I know sometimes when you see the little symbol on there, it'll say, just tropical storm, or just an S, or just an H, or the D for tropical depression, and you don't really know maybe necessarily what that means for strength of wind or the forward momentum or anything else like that. I thought I would drop that on there. Notice that the National Hurricane Center has this at 35 miles an hour right now, has it at 40 miles an hour, so tropical storm, as we head through about 12 hours from now. And in 24 hours, it peaks at 45 miles an hour and then just holds there, basically, while it treks across all the islands. The reason for this is likely land interaction. The National Hurricane Center, great meteorologists there, are a little concerned about a lot of things with this, but probably chiefly the land interaction. There's probably going to be a little bit of shear out there as well, and it's going to be kind of rocking between a couple of ridges of high pressure as well as, again, some shear back off to the north. So 45 miles an hour is the peak forecast wind strength for Tropical Depression 7 right now, which would eventually become Fiona. Now, if you look at the model data, the spaghettis and the intensity here, you see a lot of these spaghettis turning to the north pretty quickly. Maybe not right away, but as we head through maybe 36 to 72 to 96 hours. And then if you look at the intensity on here, it has it as, most of these have it as a tropical storm basically through its whole life. With a couple of these, the H-Wharf being the firm outlier in here, taking it all the way up to Category 3. I would focus chiefly on these guys down here. And, my rule with intensity is I never like to look out past about 36 to 48 to 60 hours. I'll look out uncomfortably to 72 hours. But I think for the most part, once you get beyond that, you're kind of... modeling isn't quite there yet. I tend to trust the humans more than I trust the computers. If the National Hurricane Center says 45 miles an hour, that's it, then I think that's probably the best forecast to go with right now because they know what they're doing. The H-Wharf, by the way, is probably just getting into one of these feedbacks that it does every once in a while where it thinks the storm is going to rapidly intensify, and we'll talk about that here in a second. And some of these are probably going a little too low. The D-ship in here, for example, we've got the H-Mon also probably going a little too low. But notice the H-Mon in here, the weaker system takes it basically west and maybe even a little bit off to the west-southwest as we head forward in time. That becomes something to kind of monitor. This is why. I think we've got probably 3 general scenarios within the modeling here to watch. And we've got the first scenario, which is we get a quick strengthening and the ridge of high pressure that's parked over the south. In fact, I should go back. I'm going to start over real quick. there are going to be a handful of scenarios that we're going to see within the modeling. And I tend to think that there are three big ones that we're going to have to pay attention to in respect to how we're placing our puzzle pieces in the atmosphere, or how the atmosphere is placing its own puzzle pieces. But on top of that, we're also going to have to watch the system itself and how it kind of organizes and strengthens, if it does at all. The interplay between the two of those is going to dictate what eventually happens with this. Scenario one here is the quick strengthening, and you get a ridge that's a little bit farther back off to the west. Now, the ridge of high pressure that's in control right now, giving the beautiful weather to parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, is not the ridge that's going to be in place that we're talking about in a couple of days. That one's going to change, and we're going to get a new one, in a sense, that kind of builds in. If that ridge is back farther off to the west, over Texas and Oklahoma, and maybe kind of poking its nose into parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, and then there's another ridge of high pressure that's out in the Atlantic Ocean, that one's not really going to move. That's not going to change that much. But if there's a weakness in between those two, as you can see here, it's going to slide in between there. So this is Monday evening as we head through next week. So again, this is a long way away still. Monday evening of next week, and it slides off to the north. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, stays out to sea. It might bother Bermuda. It may clip pieces of the eastern seaboard with some high seas, or maybe even some feeder bands. But for the most part, this thing stays out to sea, doesn't bother anybody. And we kind of wipe our hands clean, say, hey, look at this. We got ourselves another hurricane, but it didn't really bother anybody. The second scenario is we get no real strengthening, and you get kind of a central ridge across parts of the southeast. In this particular case, with the ridging out into the open Atlantic, you build kind of a fence in here that goes right along the islands, and then what ends up happening is tropical depression number 7. Maybe it's a weak tropical storm, maybe it's Fiona. But it would tend to kind of scrape the islands, maybe stay into the Caribbean, kind of like the HMON model was showing. Okay, let me go back up here. Kind of like it's being shown here. We kind of stay to the south, and it would drag across parts of the Caribbean and maybe into the Yucatan, into the Bay Campeche, and then into parts of Mexico. The chances that this happens, again, this is Tuesday a.m. where we're looking at where tropical depression number 7 is. If this happens, the likelihood, given the puzzle pieces that would be in place, that this thing remains weaker in this scenario is pretty low. If it's tracking across the Caribbean, there's not going to be a ton of shear. There's going to be some, but not a ton. You got plenty of warm water, and you're not going to have a lot of interaction there between other things. So again, shear not crazy. It's going to be there, but it's not going to be crazy. So I think this is probably the least likely scenario. Scenario 3 is going to be slow strengthening in an eastern ridge. So that ridge that builds down into the southeast, well, maybe it starts to build in across parts of maybe the Carolinas, Virginia, maybe out into the Atlantic, maybe across parts of Georgia. That high pressure out in the Atlantic, still there. So we've got 2 of them here, and this takes, again, Tuesday afternoon and evening. This takes number 7, here it is, with slow strengthening, as maybe still a tropical storm, across the Bahamas, across Florida, and into the Gulf of Mexico, where, depending on where the ridging sets up across parts of the southeast and the strength of that ridging, we may have an opportunity for something to happen in the Gulf of Mexico and have it pointed at somebody in the United States, or maybe it tracks all the way across the Gulf of Mexico, goes into Mexico. We don't know. This is about as far out as I think we can comfortably look, about 7 days, give or take. And so I think those are our 3 scenarios. What's the most likely? Well, it's probably a blend of all 3. So I think we see some strengthening, but it's probably going to be on the lower end of things. The National Hurricane Center is saying 45 miles an hour, and that's it through the next 5 days. I think after that point, depending on the interaction with the land, then we talk about probably a little bit of slower strengthening at that point, if there's anything left, if it doesn't have too much interaction with land. Then we may start to turn off to the north, given a little bit of strengthening and perhaps even a little bit of a break between those 2 ridges of high pressure. So the ridging may allow it to turn north and have an escape route if it kind of ends up in that kind of central-ish area, but there's enough of a weakness between the 2 for a stronger system to break through and go north and stay out to sea. U.S. impacts are probably unknown at this time. I think if anybody's telling you that anything is going to happen to the United States short of Puerto Rico, they're probably not being fully honest with you. And rapid intensification data suggests the potential between the next 36 and 72 hours for rapid intensification. You can see that on here. It's not too terribly high, somewhere between about 5 and 12%. But that is, 1 to 2 times climatological numbers. So I wouldn't say that it's high. I would say it's more on the low side of things, but certainly not zero. And the reason for that is that the current forecast track takes it across not only warm surface waters. Everybody knows this time of the year you got warm water in the Caribbean and out into the tropical and subtropical Atlantic, but it's also warm to depth, and you've got a fair bit of tropical cyclone heat potential in there. So that top map is a 26-degree isotherm. You guys probably remember me showing this thing for the last 5 to 7 years on television. The tropical cyclone heat potential, which is on the bottom, is kind of along the same lines. It just takes into account how warm is the water. I think the salinity of the water is taken into account there as well. Notice that the farther southern tracks are the ones that are going to take it over the warmest water. And you guys all know at home, probably by now, if you've lived in the southeast for any stretch of time, that the warmer waters down to the south tend to do a pretty good job at making stronger tropical systems. So we would need stronger ridging to the north to hold a stronger tropical system farther off to the south, and the chances that we're able to do that are probably not that too terribly high. So that's just kind of a quick recap. Again, this was just going to be a quick chat just to let you guys know that is what we're looking at as meteorologists. That's all the data that we have right now and all the information that we can possibly give you. In fact, I'll go back and I'll jump back in to this bad boy here. The forecast from the National Hurricane Center, 45-mile-an-hour wind as the peak wind right now, is likely going to change in the next 24 hours. As these systems get organized and get wrapped up and they go from an invest to a tropical depression to a tropical storm, we learn a lot about what it is that this system is going to do, how it's structured, how it's interacting with the puzzle pieces of the atmosphere around it. And it's at that point that we get a much better idea. As you guys know, I always say that the models aren't going to do a very good job before it's even an invest. The models are still not going to do a great job when it is an invest, but at least we'll start to get an idea. But we really don't get a good idea about what's going to happen until we get a centralized area of low pressure, and the model data can grab a hold of that and then make their predictions. And we're just now getting to that point. So I tend to think that the model data that comes out here in the next hour to 4 to 5 hours is going to be the best model data that we've had so far, and markedly better than the last 6 hours and 12 hours and 18 and 24 hours before that, but not necessarily better or worse than any subsequent next run of models as we go forward in time until it moves from tropical depression to tropical storm to a tropical storm with a centralized area of low pressure that has completely wrapped itself up. Until we get an area of low pressure within the system itself that doesn't have any openings, dry air entrainment, etc. Each next subsequent model run isn't necessarily going to be any better than the one that I think we're going to get tonight, this evening, and around between now and about midnight. Then the next step would be when the hurricane hunters get out there and they can fly in there and drop their dropsondes and fly around the outside. Once we get that data and that is put into the modeling, that's the next big jump in accuracy that we're going to get from the model data. So what you're going to see over the next couple of, I don't want to say couple of days, but likely tonight, tomorrow, and maybe through the afternoon tomorrow, and maybe even the next day, is every next model run, every 6 hours, you're going to have new data coming out from Not only the National Hurricane Center model data that they're running, all the supercomputers for the hurricane stuff, the GFS, the Euro, and all this other stuff. You're going to see maps like crazy every 3 to 6 hours. New maps. And some are going to be pointing this direction, some are going to be pointing that direction, and every next one isn't the best one. I just want to let you guys know that right now. There are certain steps along the way when the model data is going to be markedly better. Now, could a specific model do a better job than a different one at any given time, where we jump on and we say, you know what, I think this one is actually handling this pretty well? Sure. But, you're probably going to see a lot of stuff shared over the next couple of days. Stuff that looks like this bad boy here, where lines are going all over the place. Some maybe even pointed to Mississippi, maybe some are pointed to Louisiana, maybe some are pointed to Texas, maybe some are pointed to Florida. You may get a bunch of these lines that shoot straight up like a hockey stick. Don't pay any attention to that, because if the previous one said something different, if the previous one looked like this, and then all of a sudden, maybe the day after tomorrow, everything's been going fine, everything looks like this, and then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, everything's crazy. And the National Hurricane Center hasn't changed anything. It isn't because the model data is all of a sudden better and we're now thinking it's going to be X, Y, or Z storm. It's just sometimes the models do that. So I just wanted to give everyone kind of a brief update about that, because I know that can get confusing during hurricane season. It did in 2020 and 2021 for sure, when we had all of these tropical systems out there. And so I just wanted to jump on and give everyone kind of an update. I hope you guys are having a good evening. For those of you that are maybe wondering about the app, it's still in the works. I'm doing the best I can, as fast as I can, and hopefully it'll turn out great. I think it will. I'm biased, obviously, but I think it'll turn out pretty well. If anyone out there, and I'll say this again, just like I made the post the other day, if anybody is running a business and you're interested in supporting the app and also reaching a very large audience, shoot me a message. Let me know. I'm sure we can work something out. I'm trying to keep the app free, and I'm doing my best to just inform folks very matter-of-factly, like you see right now, about the weather across parts of the Gulf Coast, specifically for you folks in South Mississippi, parts of Louisiana, and Alabama, like I've done since I got off TV about a year and a half ago. So hope everyone has a good rest of your evening. If you guys have any questions, just kind of holler. I'll try and read through the comments tonight and answer any questions that do come up. And keep an eye on this thing over the next couple of days, but do know things are going to kind of go back and forth. And don't get too concerned if it goes one direction and then goes back and then comes back again and then goes the other way. Don't get too caught up in the run-to-run stuff. Just kind of keep up with the National Hurricane Center for now, and I'll continue to keep you guys updated as new data comes out. I'll let you guys know, hey, this is stuff to pay attention to, or, you know what, this isn't probably that big of a deal. And hopefully this thing turns out to sea, strengthens. If you want this thing to go out to sea, by the way, you want this thing to be a Cat 3 tomorrow morning when you wake up. Because the stronger this thing is, the faster, the sooner this thing is going to break through those ridges of high pressure and turn north and head toward the poles. So if you're hoping for something, I would hope for that. And if it gets strong enough, fast enough, it may even miss all the islands too, and that would be even better. Keep it out to sea, bothering just the boats and the fish. So everyone, have yourself a good Wednesday evening. I think I said Tuesday earlier. Have yourself a good Wednesday evening. I apologize about that. I do know what day it is, I promise. And I'll keep you guys updated on this. And hopefully I don't see you guys soon, because that would mean that this is a nothing burger. But I'm sure I will. See you guys soon.